In a world plunged into darkness, where the line between myth and reality dissolves, and the night belongs to the deadliest predators humanity has ever known. Vampires. These immortal beings, driven by a thirst for blood and power, have always inspired as much fascination as they have terror. But for every creature of the night, there is an opposite. Fearless hunters, individuals who have dedicated their lives and often their souls to confronting the darkest forces in the world. Who are they, and what makes them worthy of standing among the greatest vampire hunters in history? Names like Abraham Van Helsing, the brilliant professor who faced Dracula himself, Simon Belmont, the legendary hero who wielded the sacred whip to destroy evil, and Blade, Marvel's relentless day-walking hunter, are just a few examples of figures who have forever shaped the legend of vampire hunting. But it doesn't stop there. There are many other heroes, each with a unique story and peculiar weapons, ready to show us that the fight against darkness is far from simple. Today, we embark on a fascinating narrative through legends, stories, and fiction. We'll explore the profiles of those who challenge the creatures of the night, from historical figures and legendary heroes to fictional characters who have captivated generations. This video isn't just a list. It's about delving into the motivations, skills, and legacies of these heroes in their tireless battles against immortal evil. Get ready, because we're not just talking about swords and stakes. We're stepping into the realm of brilliant minds, unshakable courage, and an obsession with exterminating what defies the natural order of life. Stay until the end, because I promise you'll never see vampire hunting the same way again. Van Helsing is more than a vampire hunter. He's a man of brilliant intellect, driven by the pursuit of knowledge and the courage to confront what others fear. Created by Bram Stoker in Dracula, he exemplifies that true strength lies not only in weapons but in wisdom. While other heroes charge in recklessly, Van Helsing studies, understands his enemies, and confronts the supernatural with strategy. He is the light that battles the shadows, balancing science, faith, and determination. His past carries a tragedy that shaped his mission. A renowned doctor and professor, Van Helsing's life was turned upside down when he lost his wife to an illness he believed was tied to something beyond the natural world. That moment marked a turning point. He dedicated his life to studying ancient texts and folklore, uncovering a world where monsters and curses were not just stories. This is how his journey as a hunter began, driven by pain and a need to protect others from the same fate. What's most fascinating about Van Helsing is that he doesn't see vampires solely as monsters to be destroyed. He understands the human side of these creatures, the tragedy of their existence. To him, vampires are a reflection of what can happen when human desires, like the quest for immortality, spiral out of control. Yet, even while recognizing this tragic side, he fights to end them, believing they are beyond salvation. It's a battle touched with compassion, but without hesitation. Van Helsing became the template for all hunters who came after him. From Buffy to Blade, they all carry something of his legacy. But Van Helsing has something unique. He doesn't just fight. He understands what he's fighting. His strength lies in the combination of science and faith, proving it's possible to unite reason and belief in the fight against evil. He doesn't merely destroy. He seeks to understand, which makes him a far more complete hero. What makes Van Helsing unforgettable is his humanity. He's not perfect. He doesn't have superpowers or supernatural gifts. He is an ordinary man who makes mistakes, feels fear but doesn't give up. His greatest weapon is knowledge, and his greatest motivation is a desire to protect. Van Helsing teaches us that confronting monsters, whether real or internal, demands courage, intelligence, and above all, the determination not to back down in the face of darkness. Gabriel Belmont, from the famous Castlevania, Lords of Shadow game franchise, is a character who goes beyond the typical hero. Found as a baby on the doorstep of an abbey, he was raised by the Brotherhood of Light, a holy order dedicated to fighting the forces of evil. From an early age, Gabriel showed exceptional combat skills and an unyielding will. However, he also bore the weight of his mysterious origin, which always left him feeling like an outsider, even among his own. His life changed forever with the death of his wife, Marie, murdered by a vampire while he was away on a mission. Devastated, Gabriel embarked on a journey to destroy those responsible and, perhaps, find a way to bring her back. This quest, however, wasn't just about vengeance. It was also a way to cope with his guilt and find a purpose to keep living. The pain he felt fueled his determination, but also brought him closer to a darker side. Armed with the legendary whip, Vampire Killer, Gabriel faced creatures of the night with courage and skill. This whip wasn't just a powerful weapon, but also a symbol of his connection to the Brotherhood and his sacred mission. However, each battle against the forces of darkness took its toll, both physically and emotionally. Gabriel began to realize that the evil he fought externally was also growing within him. The most shocking point in his story is his transformation into Dracula, the very Prince of Darkness. The hero who fought to save the world ultimately became its greatest threat. This twist reveals that the path of sacrifice and obsession can lead even the noblest hearts astray. Gabriel not only battled vampires and monsters, but also wrestled with his own fate and the choices that brought him there. Gabriel Belmont is a remarkable character because he is deeply human, with flaws, doubts, and an unrelenting will to fight, even when all seems lost. He makes us ponder how far we would go to save those we love and what we would be willing to sacrifice for it. In the end, his story reminds us that heroes can fall, but their struggles and dilemmas are what make them unforgettable. Simon Belmont is one of the most iconic names in Castlevania. A descendant of the legendary Belmont family, he grew up hearing stories of his ancestors battling Dracula and other monsters. From a young age, Simon knew he carried a greater destiny, protecting the world from the forces of darkness. He trained intensively with the Vampire Killer Whip, a sacred weapon passed down through generations, forged specifically to combat creatures of the night. His life was dedicated to continuing his family's legacy. Simon's story is marked by tragedy and duty. As a young boy, he witnessed his homeland ravaged by Dracula's followers. Losing loved ones to these creatures only strengthened his determination to destroy the vampire once and for all. More than a hunter, Simon became a symbol of hope for his people, someone who faced the unimaginable with unshakable courage. He understood that fighting Dracula was not just a family duty, but a mission to save the world. With the Vampire Killer in hand, Simon faced hordes of monsters in dark castles and perilous caves. Each battle was a testament to his strength and resilience. But what set him apart was not just his combat skills, but his determination to never give up, even when all seemed lost. For Simon, the fight against evil was more than physical. It was also a spiritual battle, a testament to the idea that human courage and sacrifice could overcome even the power of immortality. What makes Simon special is the balance between his humanity and his responsibility as a hunter. He wasn't immune to fear or pain, but persevered nonetheless, driven by his family's legacy and the desire to protect those who couldn't defend themselves. His fight against Dracula was not just a heroic mission. It was also a reminder that evil can always be confronted, no matter how powerful it may seem. Simon Belmont is more than a character. He is the archetype of a hero fighting for a greater purpose. His story reminds us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the determination to face it. Through his battles, he inspired generations both within and outside the game, showing that even the darkest challenges can be overcome with strength, bravery, and the belief that good will always have a chance to prevail. D, the vampire hunter from Vampire Hunter D, is one of the most unique and fascinating characters in this dark universe. As a damper, the offspring of a vampire and a human, he exists between two worlds, carrying both the power of vampires and the frailties of humans. His mysterious origins raise questions. Who was his mother? Why did his father abandon him? And how does he bear the weight of being rejected by both sides? These questions make him a loner, but also a warrior devoted to protecting humans from the creatures of the night. His choice to become a vampire hunter is tied to his heritage and the internal conflict he faces. As a half-vampire, he understands better than anyone the tragedy and horror surrounding these creatures. He doesn't just destroy them. He tries to understand their motivations, facing each enemy with a mix of compassion and determination. For D, his mission isn't just a job. It's a way to seek redemption and prove that, even with vampire blood running through his veins, he can still fight for what is right. D is known for his supernatural beauty, something that attracts both allies and enemies. However, behind this cold and ethereal exterior lies a man battling his own vampiric instincts. He lives in constant vigilance, fearing the moment he might give in to the thirst for blood that is part of his nature. This internal struggle is what gives the character depth and makes him more than just a hunter. He is someone fighting not only external monsters, but also his inner demons. In addition to his exceptional combat skills, D has a peculiar feature that sets him apart: a sentient entity in his left hand, known as Left Hand. This sarcastic and intelligent figure serves as his advisor, guide, and sometimes a cynical voice that contrasts with D's reserved demeanor. This unique partnership adds layers of complexity to his journey, showing that even the loneliest hunter needs an ally, no matter how unusual it might be. What makes D unforgettable is his humanity, despite all that he carries. He is the embodiment of the dilemma between light and darkness, a symbol that choosing to fight for good is more important than one's origins. His story reminds us that being a hero doesn't mean being perfect, but resisting temptations and continuing to fight, even when the world or one's own blood tries to pull them into darkness. Alucard from Castlevania is the perfect balance between light and darkness. The son of Dracula and the human Lisa, he is living proof that good and evil can coexist within a single soul. Born with the powers of a vampire in the heart of a human, Alucard lives in constant conflict. He carries the legacy of his father, humanity's greatest enemy, but also the legacy of his mother, who believed in the power of kindness and compassion. This inner turmoil makes him one of the franchise's most fascinating characters. His decision to fight against his father stems from personal tragedy. Lisa was executed under accusations of witchcraft, though her only magic was using science to heal the sick. This cruel act awakened Dracula's wrath and his war against humanity, but also sparked something in Alucard: the desire to honor his mother's wish, which was for him not to hate humans. Thus, Alucard turned his back on Dracula and dedicated his life to protecting the world from his fury. With supernatural abilities inherited from his vampiric lineage, Alucard is a formidable opponent. He combines the strength of a vampire with the wisdom and self-control of a human. Armed with his sword and a vast range of magical powers, he fights with grace and precision, always bearing the weight of his actions. His battles are not just physical. They reflect the inner struggle between the temptation of darkness and the determination to do what is right. Despite his strength and determination, Alucard is a deeply solitary character. He remains distant from both humans and vampires, knowing he will never be fully accepted by either world. His immortality only reinforces this isolation, making him an eternal guardian, but also a silent observer of a world that changes while he remains the same. This solitude, however, never stops him from fighting for what he believes is just. Alucard is more than a vampire hunter or Dracula's son. He is a symbol of the power of choice. He teaches us that our origins do not define who we are, and that it is possible to choose the path of light, even when born into darkness. His story is a reminder that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who confront not only the evil around them, but also the demons within themselves. Saint George is globally known as the saint who slew the dragon, but his legends go far beyond that. In some Eastern European tales, he is portrayed as a protector against vampires and other creatures of the night. This connection to the supernatural makes sense, as he is often associated with light, purity, and the triumph of good over evil. For many cultures, Saint George is not just a saint but a symbol of courage in the face of darkness. His origins date back to the Roman Empire, where he is said to have served as a soldier before converting to Christianity. The story tells that George refused to abandon his faith, even in the face of persecution. This act of bravery turned him into a martyr and later a saint. It's easy to see why he came to be viewed as a spiritual warrior, someone who battles not only physical enemies but also unseen evil forces. Saint George's connection to vampires and other dark creatures arises primarily from folklore. In some versions, he is called upon to protect villages from supernatural attacks, using his blessed sword to defeat the forces of darkness. Much like in the dragon myth, Saint George not only vanquishes these creatures, but also symbolizes the victory of light over darkness. He becomes a spiritual guardian, invoked to ward off evil, particularly in regions where vampire lore was strong. In many of these tales, the cross Saint George carries is seen as his greatest weapon. It is not just a religious symbol, but a representation of divine power, which he channels to protect the innocent. It is said that wherever his cross was raised, vampires and demons dared not approach. This reinforces the idea that his strength came not only from his skill as a warrior, but from his unwavering faith and divine connection. What makes Saint George so fascinating is how he transcends a line between myth and religion. He is not merely a saint or a hero. He is a figure that inspires protection and courage across various cultures. His fight against the dragon and the creatures of darkness reminds us that, no matter the enemy, light can always prevail. Saint George is not just a historical or religious figure, but an eternal symbol of the battle against evil in all its forms. Blade, Marvel's iconic vampire hunter, is the product of a personal tragedy that turned him into a living weapon against creatures of the night. Born as Eric Brooks, he was marked from the beginning by his dark destiny. His mother was attacked by a vampire while pregnant, which gave Eric superhuman abilities, but also cursed him with a constant thirst for blood. This painful past set him on a path of vengeance against vampires, whom he blames for his curse and the loss of his family. Blade is a hybrid, half-human and half-vampire, known as the Daywalker because he can walk in sunlight, a rarity among vampires. His abilities include strength, agility, accelerated healing, and heightened senses, but what makes him truly dangerous is his determination. He fights not only against vampires, but also against the monster within himself. To control his bloodlust, Blade uses a serum that substitutes his need for human blood, allowing him to maintain his humanity. Armed with a silver sword and an arsenal of weapons designed to destroy vampires, Blade combines brutality and strategy in his hunts. He is relentless but deeply human, Guided by a strict moral code and a desire to protect the innocent, his mission is not just to eradicate vampires, but to ensure that no one else suffers as he did. Blade does not see himself as a hero, but as a tool to eliminate evil, even if it means sacrificing any chance at a normal life. Throughout his journey, Blade has found allies who share his cause, such as the wise and sardonic Whistler, who helps him develop his weapons and keeps him focused. These relationships show that, despite his solitary nature, Blade is not entirely closed off from the world. He acknowledges that winning this war sometimes requires trusting others. Nevertheless, he maintains an emotional distance, aware that his fight could one day cost the lives of those around him. Blade's story is one of resilience and purpose. He stands as a reminder that, even when faced with darkness both external and internal, it is possible to fight back and protect what is good. His relentless pursuit of justice and his willingness to confront his own nature make him one of the most compelling vampire hunters in history. Peter Plagajowicz is a mysterious and controversial figure in vampire legends. Known as one of the earliest documented cases of vampirism in the 18th century, his story takes on different nuances depending on the version. In some accounts, he is portrayed as a vampire who returned from the grave to haunt his village in Serbia. In others, more intriguing still, he is described as a man who, before becoming a vampire, hunted others of his kind, attempting to protect his community from the very curse he would eventually face himself. Peter's origins are unclear, but he is said to have been an ordinary farmer in life, living in a small village. His peaceful existence was shattered when mysterious deaths began occurring in the region, with reports of people falling ill shortly after dreaming of shadowy figures. Determined to protect his family and neighbors, Peter is said to have investigated these deaths and, according to legend, discovered that vampires were behind the terror. This revelation led him to become a hunter, facing the undead with courage and cunning. Despite his efforts, Peter's story did not have a happy ending. He ultimately succumbed to the curse he fought so hard against, ironically becoming the very thing he sought to destroy. After his death, reports emerged of him returning from the grave to attack villagers. His tomb was opened, and to everyone's shock, his body appeared intact, showing signs of vampirism as understood at the time. The villagers, fearing his wrath, took drastic measures, including driving a stake through his heart and burning his body. The version of his story that depicts him as a vampire hunter before his transformation adds a tragic tone to his legend. It suggests that Peter was not merely a victim, but also a hero, someone who risked everything to protect his community. This duality, being both savior and threat, makes his story unique in vampire folklore. He serves both as a warning of the dangers of the supernatural and as a reminder that even the bravest are not immune to the darkness. Father Donald Callahan, from Salem's Lot by Stephen King, is a character who defies the standard mold of typical vampire hunters. A priest in a small town, he begins his journey as a man of faith, but one plagued by doubts and weaknesses. When the town of Jerusalem's lot is overtaken by a malevolent presence, Callahan finds himself facing vampires led by the powerful Kurt Barlow. This encounter forces him to confront not only the creatures of the night, but also his own crises of faith and humanity. Callahan's transformation into a vampire hunter begins with a traumatic event. During his battle with Barlow, he attempts to wield his faith as a weapon but realizes his belief is not as strong as he thought. This moment of weakness causes him to falter, marking him as someone tainted by evil but not fully turned. Ashamed and tormented, Callahan abandons his life as a priest and embarks on a journey of redemption, determined to find and confront the evil that defeated him. Callahan is not the typical hunter. He has no superpowers or extraordinary skills. What drives him is his will to reclaim his faith and atone for his failures. He fights with what he has: knowledge, resourcefulness, and courage. During his travels, he learns more about vampires and other creatures, arming himself with religious symbols, stakes, and renewed determination. With every battle, he strives to rediscover his connection to faith, turning his quest for justice into something deeper and more personal. Solitude is a central theme in his story. After losing his position in the church and being shunned by society, Callahan lives as an outcast, but this only strengthens his resolve. He sees his mission as a divine calling, a second chance to confront evil. His story is marked by highs and lows, but he never gives up. Even when consumed by darkness, he continues to fight because he believes that redemption is something that must be earned. Abraham Lincoln, best known as the 16th President of the United States, takes on a new persona in the fictional work Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter by Seth Grahame Smith. Long before becoming a historical figure, he is depicted as an ordinary young man who experiences personal tragedies. His journey as a hunter begins after his mother's death, caused by a vampire. This traumatic event leads him to discover the existence of creatures of the night, awakening in him a thirst for vengeance that would shape his life. The young Abraham quickly dedicates himself to training his body and mind to confront vampires. He is aided by Henry Sturgis, a vampire who decides to guide Lincoln on his mission, providing training and information about his enemies. Under Henry's mentorship, Abraham learns to wield his iconic modified axe, which he transforms into a deadly weapon. His determination and intelligence become his greatest allies in the fight against these dark creatures. The author explores how vampire hunting intertwines with Lincoln's political life. Slavery, one of the greatest challenges of his presidency, is connected to vampires, who exploit enslaved people as a source of sustenance and power. Lincoln then realizes that his fight against slavery is also a fight against the vampires dominating the southern states. This adds a layer of heroism to his character, portraying him as someone who confronts evil in all its forms. Despite his battles with vampires, the story highlights Lincoln's human side. He is depicted as a man deeply connected to his family and friends, but also as someone bearing the weight of his choices and the losses he endured throughout his journey. The balance between his personal life, political endeavors, and his secret mission as a vampire hunter transforms him into a complex and captivating character. The greatest vampire hunters in history teach us valuable lessons about courage, sacrifice, and the endless struggle between light and darkness. Whether through faith, knowledge, or sheer determination, each of them has left an indelible mark on our collective imagination. If you enjoyed this video about the top 10 vampire hunters of all time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. After all, as we've learned today, there's far more to myths and legends than meets the eye. And who knows, maybe you're destined to be the next great vampire hunter. The night is dangerous, but it's also full of adventures, and the world needs heroes.